Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating, completely invisible world, the world of how your body actually navigates physical space. This incredible deep dive is brought to us by Dr. Christophe DeLong and Conexa Formation, and trust me, it's going to completely change how you think about even your most basic everyday movements. To kick things off, I want you to ask yourself a quick question. Imagine you wake up in the pitch dark. How on earth can you effortlessly roll out of bed, walk across the room, and find the door without constantly staring down at your toes to see where your feet are landing? Well, the answer to that mystery is proprioception. People often call it our literal sixth sense. You can basically think of it as an insanely sophisticated internal biological GPS system. But here's the catch. It's not just some static map. Your brain doesn't directly know where your body is at any given moment. Instead, it relies on this probabilistic predictive model. It's constantly guessing, predicting the impact, and updating your exact spatial position in real time. To pull this off, our biological hardware is broken down into three main components. First, you've got the sensors. These are the neuromuscular spindles and Golgi tendon organs living right inside your muscles, tendons, and joints, constantly measuring tension and stretch. Second are the transmission cables, specifically the A-alpha nerve fibers that shoot those signals up your spinal cord. And finally, the processor. That's your brain taking in all this raw data to constantly validate the physical hypothesis of your movement. What's really wild is how two completely different nervous highways actually compete against each other to process all this. On one side, there's the lemniscal pathway, which gives us conscious proprioception. Think of this like looking at the GPS screen right on your car's dashboard. It's super precise, sure, and it allows for voluntary movement, but it totally consumes your attention, and honestly, it's slow. On the flip side, we have the spinocerebellar pathway, or unconscious proprioception. This pathway acts exactly like a car's automatic ABS braking system. No conscious thought required, and it reacts to physical danger way before you even realize it's there. Just to give you a sense of the sheer speed we're talking about, 20 to 40 milliseconds. That's it. In that literal blink of an eye window, your cerebellum is using that unconscious ABS pathway to automatically regulate your posture and catch your balance. Now, compare that lightning speed to the slightly slower 80 to 120 milliseconds it takes for your brain's cortex to make a voluntary, conscious adjustment. So if you trip over a tree root on a hike, that 20 to 40 millisecond system is what instantly keeps you upright. If you have to actually think about catching your fall, you're relying on the slower, conscious window. These precise time windows literally dictate our safety. Those crucial A-alpha nerve fibers transmit data at jaw-dropping speeds of 80 to 120 meters per second. They are quite literally the fastest fibers in the entire human body. And the fundamental rule here is this. If we miss these time frames, if that signal gets delayed even a tiny bit, the brain just stops trying to correct your normal movement and is forced to trigger emergency safety strategies instead. But what happens when things go wrong? Say you sprain an ankle, suffer from nerve damage, or undergo a joint replacement. Well, you effectively break that intricate biological GPS. The sensors get destroyed, or the transmission gets bogged down, and your brain is suddenly hit with a massive, flashing signal lost warning. When that happens, you start experiencing some pretty terrifying system glitches. First up is a temporal lag. Imagine your foot hitting the floor, but because the nerve's myelin sheath is damaged, your brain actually thinks your foot is still floating in the air. Next is a choppy refresh rate. This is where the brain gets stuttering, glitchy data, making your walk feel highly hesitant. And finally, total signal loss. This feels exactly like driving through a massive dark tunnel where your car's GPS completely drops off the map. So that brings us to the backup cameras, activating exteroceptors, and the cost of neuroeconomics. Basically, what does the body do when that primary internal navigation fails? Because our bodies are ultimate survivors, they don't just shut down. They activate external backup cameras. If those internal proprioceptors, the ones telling you the exact angle of your knee, fail, our sensory failsafes step up to the plate. This means relying heavily on the vestibular system in your inner ear to detect head tilt, and leaning on your vision, which suddenly has to work massive overtime just to scan the ground and visually verify where your own limbs are. Now here's the crucial takeaway. Constantly using your eyes as a backup to watch your feet isn't just some quirky habit. It is a severe neuroeconomic drain. It causes massive mental fatigue, irritability, and even a physical reluctance to move. Why? Simply put, The brain absolutely despises sensory mismatch. If your eyes see a perfectly flat floor, but your delayed ankle sensors are sending up confusing signals, your brain burns vast amounts of energy trying to resolve that conflict. You can actually physically spot someone operating with a broken GPS if you know what to look for. Watch for the fixed gaze strategy where they stare intensely at their feet. They might use a widened stance, kind of like a sailor on a stormy deck, just to increase stability. You might hear steppage, which is a heavy, slapping footstep because the brain doesn't actually know exactly where the floor is. You'll see rigid, stiff arms instead of fluid movement. And clinically, there's the Romberg test. If someone stands with their feet together, closes their eyes, and immediately starts falling, their internal GPS is definitively broken. Let's move to system failure. What exactly causes the biological GPS to disconnect in the first place? Disruptions can honestly happen anywhere along the chain. You've got mechanical issues, like a ligament sprain, that physically tear the thousands of microscopic sensors right inside the joint. Then there are peripheral neurological issues, like diabetic neuropathy, which actually damage the nerves carrying the signal. Central issues like MS or stroke mess with the brain's processing. And it's not just major injuries. Natural aging, extreme fatigue, and most importantly, pain itself. Simply having a painful joint actively mutes the sensory output from those receptors. Fortunately, we can talk about rebooting the system, neuroplasticity, and connexa formation. Because the good news is, we don't have to live with a broken GPS forever. Thanks to the absolute magic of neuroplasticity, we can reboot and recalibrate the system. But true rehabilitation isn't just forcefully pushing a signal through a damaged pathway. It's a precise 3-step process. Step 1. Wake up the dormant or remaining sensors. Step 2. Force the brain to process information faster through unpredictable situations, which helps eliminate that temporal lag. And step 3, if the primary sensors are permanently gone, we safely and efficiently build compensation strategies using our other senses. To make sure the system is actually healing, practitioners have to stress test your GPS. They might have you do exercises with your eyes closed, temporarily removing that visual backup to force your body to rely on its internal sensors. Or they'll throw a dual task at you, like walking on an unstable surface while counting backward from 100. If you have to stop talking just to keep your balance, your proprioception isn't fully unconscious yet. True proprioception requires zero conscious thought. And this incredible science builds directly into technological applications. Connexa serves as the ultimate diagnostic and rehabilitation software across a bunch of different fields. In sports, the whole focus is on reactivity and controlled explosivity. Over in orthopedics, it's about regaining confidence in your support and load symmetry after surgery. And in neurology, it's all about reducing bodily oscillations to achieve postural precision. Connexa objectively measures exactly when your nervous system drops out and, more importantly, proves exactly when it improves. To summarize this beautifully, as Connexa Formation notes, this technology doesn't just diagnose a problem, it serves as a true benchmark of progression. It literally takes those internal, completely invisible biological victories of your nervous system reconnecting and transforms them into hard, objective, measurable data. It finally proves to the patient that their internal GPS is actually coming back online. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder the next time you take a walk or step off a curb. Is your own biological GPS running smoothly on the latest update, or are you secretly relying on exhausting external backup cameras just to get through the day? It might just be time for a recalibration. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the hidden machinery of the human body.